Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday Talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your two hosts. I'm Noor Kyle.
And I am her faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Yeah, we don't have two hosts. We have a host and a sidekick. What am I saying?
What
So
are you saying?
it's just like old times. I can't help myself. So, ah, thank you for being here, whether you're new or you've been here a bunch of times with us here live. And if you're watching on the replay, a very warm welcome to you as well. Happy holidays. No matter what you're celebrating, we hope you can find some way to make it joyful and fun and positive, something that helps you feel a little hope in this world that can seem a little bit lacking in the hope department for any number of reasons, right? So let's lift each other up here. Let's see if we can have a good time, talk about things that are meaningful and that make a difference. But if you'd like to make a difference in our lives, you could do the whole like commenting, subscribing thing that is so useful to us YouTube people, because that helps us keep our channel visible, keeps engagement high, helps us share what we need to share to get people on the ball, get people taking action, getting people sitting in a place of ownership over their lives at a time when that feels really challenging for many of us. It's not impossible. So we still have our ongoing fund drive.
Until
And
the first of the year.
yes, that wraps up at the first of the year, at which point we will be figuring out who our winner is for our three free sessions, our three free private sessions with either a one-on-one or perhaps in the mix there, you can have a two-on-one where both of us hang out with you and we talk about your life. We troubleshoot. We see how we can support you on your path of getting awake and staying awake in a world that is desperately in need of more awake people. Anything I should add, Mushtaq? Anything missing?
Nah,
Yeah, so I mean, all kinds of links of interest you'll find in the description. Facebook group, ways to donate, all of those things. Check those out. Means a lot to us. And thank you so much.
we should mention that we are working on getting multiple translations of the Veerd that we talked about last week for
That's right.
people,
Yes.
and working on getting ways to get it to people who are not on our mailing list or in our Facebook group.
Yeah.
But
Well,
if you'd like to be in the front lines of that, join the mailing list, get on the Facebook group. Leave a note with us when you join the mailing list that you're interested in the Virids.
yes, we
We're
had someone
preparing,
from Italy reaching out to us who I need to get back to. We have not forgotten about you. Thank you for your offer of help. And
yeah.
definitely we will be wanting to work something out so that we can create more translations.
And then we will work out some help in how to start your own groups if that's something that you want to do.
Yeah.
This is a franchise that doesn't cost you anything. It's a multi-level marketing program where you get to help two friends do the Veered and they help two friends and nobody gets any money for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the
So,
spirit of the thing. Yeah.
yeah. And I would like to see this into as many different languages as possible
Hmm.
because it is best done in the language in which you think.
Yes. Thank you to everyone who has helped with that already. It's pretty awesome. Okay, without further ado, our topic tonight. It's
What
kind
is
of
our
a fun
topic
one.
tonight?
We're talking about taming the robot within.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Well, we use all kinds of words for what we're calling the robot. We call it ego, we call it the nafs, we call it the mechanical self, the persona, the false self. Any word you like from the buffet table, roll with it. It's great because we're all talking about the same thing. And this is the thing that gets in the way of us being able to access something deeper. And as we'll discuss, it's not all bad, this robot inside of us. But it's important that we allow it to flourish in its own particular context and not just take over everything and everything. Everything, anything, all things in our lives. Then we don't get to have a hands-on experience. Rather, we are living through that robotic part of us. So, Mushtaq, what would you like to say about that?
Uh, what we were about to tell you, you can take it as metaphor, or you can take it as truth. I don't care which. I'm going to give you a model. Nora is going to give you a model. And we are not interested in arguing about the model. It's just a model. It will give you some useful stuff if you apply it. If you want to do anything else with it, feel free, but don't do it here. That being said,
Don't worry, I'll handle all that.
okay, here's the model. Each of us has a mechanical nature that I usually call the robot, for lack of a better term. And the thing about it is that the robot is vastly stronger than your essence, than you are. When we see essence, what we're talking about is that which is aware when you are awake. When I say, check inside and see if you're awake now, and you look inside and go, yeah, I'm awake. The thing that notices that, it's not really a thing, but we got English, so what can we do? What notices that is your essence, the witness. Got all sorts of names too.
Who or what doesn't matter which word you use there.
Yeah.
We're talking about the same thing.
You need to understand, though, that that is weak. The eye that sees the witness is weak in comparison to the robot. So much so that the robot can put the witness back to sleep almost at will. It's not really asleep. Essence doesn't sleep. Essence identifies with the sleep of the robot, and the robot is asleep, acting mechanically. What this means is that in those moments of lucidity, you think, oh, I could exercise direct will over my mechanical nature. And the moment you try, it distracts you. You go back to sleep. And if you're not sure what that's like, think about a time when you were pretty awake and you stubbed your toe, or somebody called you a name, or whatever that drove you back into your stimulus response situation. Does this make sense so far? Remember, it's just a model, but you can make sense of the model.
So it's just a model, but with that said, do we have any thoughts or questions so far?
Yeah, I will just say I cannot find anything to nitpick about with your model today.
Damn,
Oh, damn. Okay. Good to know, Ian.
I feel like I'm
And
slipping.
so Rat has a question for us. Rat
Yes.
asks, is the robot the formatory apparatus?
What do you mean by formatory apparatus?
Yeah, we'll give Rat a moment to
Yeah.
I
expound.
believe it's a term out of Ouspensky.
The mechanical part of thinking.
It is the mechanical part of thinking, feeling, and sensing.
The whole bag.
Whole bag. It is designed to keep you alive. It is purely stimulus response. It is, think of it as scripts that you run. Rather than being spontaneous, when the robot is in charge and you get a particular stimulus, it will look through its library of responses and find a script that it feels like is appropriate, and you will get to play out that script.
Yeah, Rat was asking coordinator but mechanical, and it seems we clarified somehow.
Yes.
So
Good.
all's good. Rat says thank you.
Sometimes it's a miracle that we make sense, but we believe in miracles.
All right.
So, Mr. Gurdjieff would like you to take this as doctrine. The Sufis would like you to take something very close to that as doctrine, that this is the working with the seven levels of the Nafs. And this would be the Nafs al-Amara, the commanding self. And you take away all of the theological bullshit around it. You know, nowadays when you look at some groups who use that term, they talk about the self that commands you to evil and all of that kind of stuff. No, it's not that. It's the self that commands you to do a stimulus response, to do a response to a stimuli that is patterned, that is not spontaneous and not your choice. Make sense so far? James, you look like you want to say something.
I certainly accept that it's not in itself a good and evil moralistic thing. It's a survival device that gets a bit carried away. But at the same time, isn't it our mechanical nature or our mechanical tendencies that make things perceptual errors like racism and sexism so easy to indulge in?
Um, Probably sexism and racism is part and parcel of the mechanical nature.
Hmm. So while it in itself is a mechanical device, a feature of the nervous system, it can have moral and ethical consequences. I mean, it's very easy to, when you're on mechanical, to not appreciate the subjectivity of another person, to just turn them into a thing. Isn't that sort of an inclination born of the mechanical?
How does one develop that?
Develop the inclination to turn other people into things, to not see
Yeah.
them.
Yes.
How to develop it? Well, instead of looking at them, instead of actually having attention to what they are, you fall back on a mechanical interpretation, a habitual perception you acquired long ago, and not taking the real information
How do
that's.
you acquire it?
How do you acquire it? Well, the robot acquires it through its experience and through its lazy, through its economical way of trying to process experience in the simplest formats.
So the robot is heuristic in nature.
Okay.
It means it had to pick up its heuristics from somewhere.
Yeah,
One of the most common places to pick up heuristics is from your family.
sure.
If you find somebody who's racist and you look at their family history, you will probably find a whole line of racists who have passed that down to the person.
Yeah.
That's a script. It's even mimetic in nature to a certain extent. Um, so we got that going for us. We have a couple of questions here.
Thanks, James. So Todd had a thought, and Mike in the chat has a thought, and
I thought I saw somebody else in there as well, but
yeah, Ian also raised his
yeah.
hand.
Okay. Start with Todd.
Okay, so just a few weeks ago, I saw this in a non-spiritual context. I was taking a course on a workshop on hand forging from a local blacksmith, And he was talking about how the things that get in the way are that you have a program running that tries to keep you safe, physically safe, which leads to bad habits like staying far away from the work, um, being tentative about hitting and staying away from the piece of hot metal when it's not, in fact, unsafe. Not a spiritual context, not anything deep, but it was interesting to see this played out and described in detail in an interesting and in a irrelevant to me
Yeah.
limited context.
And it's absolutely correct. You know that if you try and stand at arm's length when you are forging a piece of hot iron, you're not going to be able to deliver the power or the precision of the strike that you need to. So you have to belly up to the anvil, as they say, to be able to put your weight directly over the hammer. And that requires a little bit of courage to approach that hot metal. That and a good apron, preferably made of leather.
Yep. Um,
Yeah, that's a great example.
A lived one. Thank you, Todd.
Yeah.
All right. So Mike asks, are we talking about the flesh or lower self? I mean, I would say yes. I would say this is a different model, but those are alternative words that people might use for this.
Yeah, and the flesh is actually more appropriate than one might think because the nafs, the mechanical self, is of the body. It's in your body. It's not in the air around you or anything. It is part of the organic being. It's a central part of the organic being. I try to avoid the term lower self because that has such a moralistic connotation to it in certain circles. So that's why I tend to use the robot,
Good
but
question,
that's
Mark.
neither here nor there.
Yeah. And sorry,
Yes.
did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, not if you have a thought.
Nope. I was just gonna check with Ian, see if he had something he wanted to say.
Yeah, it was. I actually don't know quite why my hand lowered after I'd raised it, but it was really in relation to what James was asking about. Because I was going to say societal programming, and the reason I was thinking in those terms is that this afternoon I watched the discussion you had with Jeremiah about the Conference of the Birds,
Uh-huh.
in particular the discussion about. I'm going to have to paraphrase this, but the man becoming the woman and the woman becoming the man. Um, and one of the things I was thinking about that, which is something that goes quite a way back in my thinking, is that there is so much societal programming involved about being male or being female. We're not only told what we should be in order to be a man or to be a woman, but we're also told, and this was an interestingly different take on it that I had this afternoon. We're also told about what we should expect from the other sex. So we've got these two different things. We're we're essentially given an archetype of our own gender, but then we're also given an archetype of the other gender, which is not necessarily the same as the archetype that the other gender is given. So there's these two different twists on it. And I think that applies to racism as well, because if you take all of that societal programming away, then the way I put it is the differences are a lot less extreme than they might appear at first sight.
Yeah, that's interesting. Comparing, the images that we hold for ourselves and those that we hold for others. Thank you, Ian. And I will put a link to the video that Ian is referencing in our description because I enjoyed that conversation and I want to make sure that Jeremiah
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
gets some eyeballs on his video. So thanks for mentioning him. Mike asks, is it having an experience separate from consciousness/awareness, a life of its own?
I'm not sure that you can have an experience separate from consciousness. What's having the experience?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, let's swing back on that. We
we'll
need to
swing
get,
back on that because we may get kind
yeah.
of an untanglement of that question as we go along.
Okay. So here is the horror of the situation. You cannot control your machine. You cannot exert direct control of your machine. If you try, your machine will just gently put you back to sleep or drive you mad with various things that it has in store for you. So what do you do? What do you actually have that you can use? I'll tell you so you don't have to guess. The first thing you have is control of your breath if you choose to use it. This is a very interesting thing. The machine will, for the most part, control your breath. If you are not breathing consciously, the robot is breathing for you. And yet, in this very instant, you can take over conscious, intentional use of your breath purely by shifting your awareness to your breath. And if you change your breath, you change your state. You know that. But you don't even have to do that yet. What I want you to notice is that you can be aware of your breath. And that gives you a hint. The only thing you can do at the beginning of this is to observe the robot. This is called self-observation. We talk about this a lot. Observe the robot. To use your breath to create a moment of awareness and use that awareness to observe the machine and what it is doing. What script is it running for you right now? What are you talking to yourself about inside your own head? What feelings arise mechanically as you are given different stimuli? You can observe this. What's the point of that? What's the point of being able to take conscious control of your breath and observe the machine? Yes, Ian.
To wake up?
Well, yeah, in general. Let's see if we can drill down to a more specific in the moment.
Well, to at least take temporary control away from the machine. Actually, away from the robot. I love that term, the robot.
Yeah. Robot comes from, I believe, the Czech, and it means slave. Did you know that?
Todd
I
did.
think
Yeah, Todd will know this, and maybe Ian will know this, but it's not that well known.
No, I had heard that before, but I don't know anything deep
Yeah.
about origin.
Yeah,
It
it
was
comes from a play, a Czechoslovakian
Yeah.
play.
was that the machine? The machine stops? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I think so. I should have looked that up before this talk, but I didn't have time.
Someone else wants to look it up real quick.
Yeah.
Uh,
So,
Carl, I don't know how to say that last name. Kapik.
Karl Čapek.
yeah.
In general, the root rob in Slavic languages means work or worker, like in Russian, работать is to work. So
Mhm.
just means the worker, robot, the worker.
Nice. And it does work hard.
Yeah.
It's funny because we get our word slave also from Slavic, because slave
Yeah.
is the Slavs who were the slaves in the Ottoman Empire.
And also the slaves of the Northmen.
Yep. And somehow, from that root of worker, which is absolutely correct now that you mention it, it's all coming back, you get in Czech the idea of the worker as slave. So, there we go. So, if the only thing we can do in the beginning is observe, what do we do with that?
Formulate a plan.
Don't even organize a plan yet, but yes. What are you observing? You're observing the behaviors of the robot, right? Eventually, you will develop a library of behaviors that you can notice.
Yep.
Every time I talk to my family, this happens. Every time I have this particular experience at work, this happens. Every time I stub my toe, this happens, right? We can begin to notice what the scripts are that your robot runs. And you need to know this. This needs to become conscious. And this is the first step. Well, the second step. First step, take control of your breath. Breathe consciously.
The doorway.
Where have
Right
we
there.
heard that before? Breathe consciously.
Breathe consciously.
Yeah. Awareness of breath. Then observe the behavior of the robot. Or watch your Nafs. I don't care how you say it. You just do it. When you have a library beginning to build up, you can notice what triggers a particular script, right? Now, here's the thing. I know that X behavior or X event will trigger a particular script in me. If I can maintain conscious breathing, I can interrupt the activation of that script. If I can catch it at the beginning, but I have to have that awareness. This is the value of self-observation, to be able to catch these scripts as they begin to initiate. Because if you try and do something in the middle, it ain't going to work. Just ain't going to work. You have to catch it at its very, very beginning. And the only way to do that is to know what it is. And the only way to know what it is through serious self-observation. Does this make sense so far? You all should kind of know this already.
Yeah, we get some thoughts in the comments. I'll get to Mike's question in a moment. And there are three awarenesses: the breath, the surroundings, the awareness. So being aware of being aware.
Yes.
So internal, external, and the machine's workings, being aware of those as well.
Funny how it always comes out in threes.
And Mike's asking, are you creating a process or program, or are you adopting one?
Neither. You observe the process or the program. Or I may be misunderstanding your question, in which case the other answer would be, if you are doing this, you are creating an awareness of the program and you're not doing something, you're not doing something.
Say that again.
Yeah.
Okay, after the awareness, he's saying,
Yeah.
once you are aware,
Once you are aware, then you have the opportunity, if you can recognize the beginning of a script, to interrupt that script. And the way that you interrupt it is not doing. Wu Wei. You allow it to be without taking action. And you just observe it. So, I'm driving down the road and somebody cuts me off. The script comes up to get really angry. And I see that, and I have enough presence of mind to stay in my breath and watch the desire to rage come up, and yet I don't act on it. I don't actually allow it to step into the realm of action. And so it's there, but it has no place to go. And when that happens, it will dissolve after a minute or so, if you can stay in your breath. A little practice and it'll dissolve after a second or so. A lot of practice and it will dissolve almost immediately. Even more practice and it'll stop coming up. In operant conditioning, they call this extinguishing the response. And that's when the response does not get the expected reward.
it can take a little time to get there.
It can take a lot of time to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic because sometimes this is really, really hard. But as we were saying earlier, that's where you stay in the observation as opposed to moving on to the self-judgment that gets you stuck in that loop and you're getting sucked into the script all over again that way. And that'll happen, especially in the beginning, that will happen. So we return to the breath and we apply the same process to that script that comes up. And with time, with patience, and with that acceptance that comes with observing these patterns in you, you can begin to lessen their hold on you. And that's when you have energy that is not stuck in these patterns that you can begin to use for other things. James.
It makes me think I'm definitely at this point, this sort of where I spend most of the time just interrupting the reaction, not going with it. And often it feels like, oh, well, I've conquered that one. Then it pops its head up again a bit later. Um, uh, and it's just just accepting that I'm on that feels like a roundabout, but obviously it can feel, oh my God, this is going to go on forever. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. Uh,
No, it's not. When you take the reward away from the script stops working after a while.
After a while.
Yeah.
And when I look back over the past few years, I can see, okay, there's definitely some degrees of freedom gained here, some little slivers here and there. I'm losing the point I was getting to. I'm making it sound like terrible, making it sound like some terrible drudgery. It's not. In fact, it's absolute necessity, I think, for really getting anywhere. Um, I'm waffling and I'll stop talking now because I think I've lost the point I was trying to make.
All right. Well, pull yourself back to the moment, James. Hang in there. I'm sure you'll figure it out. So Mike says this makes me think of steps 1, 2, and 3 in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, and I can see that. Alcoholics Anonymous is working on one specific set of mechanical responses, but they're mechanical responses. So that makes sense. Yeah. So, what are the rewards that you get when you allow your scripts to run in the robot, when the programs run? Because you will get a reward for the successful completion of a program. What are they? Yes, James.
Well, when it goes the way I want it to, in inverted commas, it's returning to homeostasis, like something disturbs me. I go through the robotic script that's designed to try and get back to homeostasis. Even the homeostasis itself was a bit crappy to begin with. And it's all what's dragging me along is the promise that this is going to resolve something. Even if it doesn't, even if it's, repeating some argument I had with my girlfriend 20 years ago in my head or some totally futile, not no real world reward. But that's the reward that it kind of dangles in front of me. This will resolve something.
Yeah. So here's the thing. One of the most powerful stimuli to your brain is the feeling that you are right.
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
When you get the feeling that you are right, when you feel like you have proved that you are right, you get an entire cascade of neurotransmitters based around dopamine, in particular, but with a little serotonin and a couple of other things thrown in that strongly reinforce this.
Mm.
And so um, you block that cascade when you prevent the script from running. You know what happens when you do that? Somebody take a guess. What happens when you block the reward?
It'll be like going into withdrawal.
Yes, it's exactly that. You go into withdrawal.
Yeah, Todd.
Oh, I would say fear, insecurity, feelings of loss and confusion. Things that not just a passive loss of transmitters, but an active punishment to put you back into what is safe and predictable.
Yeah, withdrawal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, as you said, one of the things that we get out of following a script is this sense of safety and predictability, which I thought
Yeah.
was,
And it's pretty much self-reinforcing. Look,
yeah.
if I wanted to control the world, I would set up a series of rewards for people who responded in the way I wanted to. I would have rallies. I would use catchphrases, and I would make people feel like they're winning. So much winning. All the winning. You'll get tired of winning. And I would addict people to their dopamine as long as they are getting that stimulation and as long as they have the feeling of feeling right. And I could take over vast amounts of the human population that way.
Yeah.
I could take over control of a political party that way or a religion.
So as Rat says, the real reward, the actual reward that we get out of allowing our scripts to run us is that we get the reward of continued sleep. And I think there's something to be said about that. You get to now it's interesting because the sleep does not feel good necessarily. For many of us, it feels pretty bad. There are a lot of nightmares happening in our sleep, and yet it's comfortable. It's familiar. As Todd said, it's predictable. It's a terror that makes sense to us. It's a false pleasure that we can be satisfied by up to a certain extent. And many people spend their whole lives comfortable with that alone.
Yeah. Todd points out a man will not give up his suffering. Even more, if you keep somebody enslaved long enough, they will start decorating their collar.
Yeah. Well, if you believe that your suffering or your superficial joys are who you are, it would be terrifying to lose those, to give those up for something unfamiliar and foreign and weird and God knows.
So here's the pattern. Take command of your breath. Breathe consciously. Awareness on breath. Observe the behaviors of the machine. Learn them. Then, using your breath, interrupt one behavior, a small one to start. Don't stop the behavior, just don't act on it. Use your breath to stay conscious and observe the behavior as it wants to act. Rinse, repeat. This is the beginning of the work. If you do this, you have a good start. Then find a way to remind yourself daily of what this is all about. For instance, work on the Veered daily. If you do that, you might find somebody who would like to do it with you. You know, you can go up to somebody and say, hey, you want to hit a Veered? First hit's free. So is the second and the third. You can use this to develop an affinity group around yourself that helps with the work. The person who does the work alone is handicapping themselves. It is way better to do the work with friends. It's probably even better to do the work with enemies, but that's pretty stressful for most people. So stick with friends. Do the work with friends. Does this make sense? Does this seem like a simple enough outline of how to do this step?
Hmm.
Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, let's hear from people who have not
Yeah, briefly.
chimed in yet. Yeah, I'm holding back from calling on people, but I will if I
Yeah, don't
must.
call on anybody. If they want to talk, let them talk. We know who you are. And if they don't want to talk, we get to have dinner early.
Hmm.
And there was silence.
I'll
All
speak
right.
up.
Yes.
All right. Here we go. I wanted to ask about like the cyclical nature of time and if this is a little bit of what we're talking about.
Not really.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I want to hear
Yeah.
what your thought process is, Kyle.
Uh, I'm not sure if it is related actually, but
It's a damn good question.
yeah, that time is cyclical, not linear. And if you pay attention to things close enough, you'll see that things are repeated again and again and again and again and again. And the only way to escape that is through awareness.
Yeah. One can view time as linear. One can view time as cyclical. One can view time in several different ways. There is something to all of that that should be obvious, that if you can view time in any of these different ways, then time is relative to the perceiver. Yeah. Personally, I think linear time is a confidence trick designed to make us go to work.
Khalil says, actually, it is related. Read Living Time by Maurice
Maurice
Nicoll.
Nicoll, one of Gurdjieff's students.
The eternal return is inescapable without obviating the robot.
Yeah.
And Todd says, he quotes, "The man in black fled through the wilderness. The gunslinger followed."
That's an obscure reference to what's his name's novels. The Tower and
Stephen King, Dark
yeah,
Tower.
Stephen King, yes.
Yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts or questions?
I will just comment that, excuse me, one of the terms that I've found to be very useful is something that uh, I remember Noor saying probably over a year ago in connection with the Enneagram, which is that it's a spiral because it the thing that bothers me about just thinking of it as a circle or cyclical is that it doesn't necessarily go anywhere. So a spiral goes somewhere. It might go up, it might even go down, but there's a different dimension going on.
Excellent, Ian. Thank you. That's a
Yeah.
really good point. So,
And if you want to learn more about time, I highly remember a book by Jean-Paul Zogby called The Power of Time Perception, which I think is, in a lot of ways, way more interesting than Nicole's book in that uh, it has more of the cutting edge of science involved in it.
Read both.
Yeah, read both.
Read both. Yeah. Tom is having a hard time. All right. And Khalil also mentions Heidegger's being in time might also be valuable to people who
Yeah.
are into that stuff.
Yeah, if you really want to bend your mind a little bit, read Heidegger.
There you go. 3 great choices for your reading list. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going through the chat here. RM
But
asked
if you're going to look it up, it's being and time.
being and time.
Yeah, being and time is the name of the book. Well, the book is actually in German, but being and time.
That's for Heidegger. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Um,
Yeah, Zeit und Sein.
or Sein and Zeit.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mike asks how about process philosophy in relation to the topic?
Khalil, answer that for me.
Yeah, definitely, because Whitehead's notion of I forget what he calls it, inherence or coherence. He has this notion that we proceed creatively in time toward the future. So it's very relevant. I forgot his specific term for it, though.
Yeah, that's why I was hoping to slough it off on you because I couldn't remember it either.
I think he calls it something like it has to do with grasping the moment the way we're talking about creatively, that is consciously, not like being a robot flowing through time, but actually making a creative and conscious response to the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what he said.
There you go. Thank you, Khalil.
It's been way too long since I've read Whitehead.
It's been a while. Yeah. All right. RM says focusing on breath and trying to observe some difficult pattern can be hard at times, but the robot is trying to make it difficult as well.
When the robot notices, it will try and make it difficult, but you can slip under the robot's radar. But yes, it is hard. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
We wouldn't be talking about it.
Yeah.
Good question.
Here's the thing. The work is hard. The work is not easy. You cannot do the work in a 3-day seminar in a nice hotel in San Francisco. You cannot do the work taking courses from Mind Valley. You will not get any of the work from there. You will find ways to make your machine more powerful, which is the other side of this. We should maybe talk about that in a minute. But
I'm gonna make a note because that could be useful.
yeah.
Souping up the robot, right?
Yep.
All right.
Amelia has
Yeah.
their
Amelia.
hand raised.
Yeah. I was imagining like my own, I wasn't sure if the way I'm conceptualizing the talk was right, so I wanted to try describing it concisely, which is that, or at least the way that I'm imagining it, which is that there's a subset of your mind that's kind of responsible for, more long-term entrained behavior, and it's very powerful for a reason, just evolutionarily speaking, because it operates on a different timeline, and that kind of makes you, and that's, you're not necessarily always want to be fighting against it, but there are subsets of the things it's overriding that you might want to rectify. That's the way I see it. Would that be right?
Yeah. The machine has a purpose, and everybody here has a very successful machine. You know how I can tell? You're all still breathing.
Kept us alive all this time.
Yes, that's what it does.
Yay! We can have
When
gratitude for
you
that.
are walking through the jungle and the machine perceives a tiger, you will find yourself acting without thinking and acting in a way that the machine is pretty sure will keep you from getting et by the tiger. Yeah, and the default mode network has a lot to do with that. We got to do a talk on that soon, or make a point of
Um,
taking a note on the default mode network.
yeah, I mean, we got to return to that topic for sure. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we keep bringing it up and then not talking about it.
Yep. Network. Okay. Thanks, Kylo, for mentioning that in the chat. And yeah, sympathetic nervous system. Uh, The nervous system, I mean, I'm talking out of my ass a little bit. There is some confusing science around, the vagus nerve and everything right now as people try to suss out exactly what we're referring to when we talk about that. But it remains true that if we find ways to engage our nervous system in a way that allows us not to be hijacked by our programming and by the robot doing its thing, then yes, we get to kind of engage our nervous system in a way that is intentional, that ultimately feels better than letting the robot run us. So yes, the nervous system absolutely does come into play here. And breath is an excellent way to soothe our bodies physiologically.
Yeah. Fortunately, RM is a physician, so they know a little bit about nervous systems.
Mhm. Yes, so Todd is asking, and this is a question for many folks who might not have watched last week's video. Mushtak was talking about this thing that we want to encourage everyone to read and
Practice.
practice. It's called a weird or veered, verd, and we discussed that last Sunday. So
Yeah,
more
so
on
go watch that. There'll be a link at
that
the end of
previous
this.
video. Yeah.
And it's something that we're starting a movement where hundreds of thousands of people can do this together as groups or separately. And if you do it, it will change you a little bit, and it might change the world a little bit. And so we will be talking about this from time to time on this channel. We may even make specific videos that are not Sunday talks on it because we kind of need to do that. Um,
Yes.
yeah, heart rate variability is surprisingly important, and that can be controlled through breath.
Yep. As RM affirms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Keem says the machine does not like us to awake because if we are awake, the machine feels it may die.
And that's definitely true.
And so actually this kind of ties together what we were just talking about with the breath work and the heart rate variability is you can use your breath to help the robot understand it is not going to die. That it absolutely has a valuable role to play, that you're not getting rid of it, you're not trying to kill it, you're not trying to snuff it out. But it has its role, and its appropriate role is in taking care of you in the ways that are not going to get in the way of you being able to make conscious choices.
Yeah. You need the robot as much as you need your liver or your kidneys or your heart. It is an integral part of you. But just as you don't want your liver doing processes that are best left to your lungs, you don't want the robot to try and run everything. The poor robot is sitting there going, the essence is fixated. So I must take care of everything. And RM says robot needs to be balanced with breath. Yes, that's one of the main reasons that we work breath first, foremost, and always. Remember what Bahauddin Naqshband, the great saint of the whatever century it was, 12th century, 14th century, I forget. He said, and I quote, "Our method is founded in breath." And this is something that goes all the way back along the lineage to Yusuf Hamidani. And it is as true for us now as it was for them then. Our method is founded in breath. That's why we have so many different breath practices.
Yep.
We have a menu of breath practices for whatever strikes your fancy in the moment.
Mm-hmm. And Mike mentioned self-care, and I think one way we can frame this work is that it is strategic self-care.
Yes. Most self-care is thought of as falling asleep. Falling asleep and having good dreams is what most people think of as self-care, and that's not what we think of as self-care. All right. Any more thoughts, questions, answers? No? Good. I'm going to switch over to Brady Bunch mode.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that everyone took a moment to chime in their way.
Yeah.
Was that a sneeze, Ian? Bless you.
No problem.
Agony and tedium, says Todd.
Yes. All right.
Okay, so I think we can go to Brady Bunch mode.
And we have.
Yay, great. So again, I want to wish everyone happy holidays, whether you have just celebrated the solstice, Yule might be your thing, Blessed Yule,
Yeah. And remember,
Christmas.
if you're a Sufi, you get to celebrate all the holidays.
I mean, that's what we do. So
Yeah.
happy Hanukkah, happy New Year, all of the things. Enjoy them. Give yourself some time to breathe. Let that be a gift to yourself. And we will see you next Sunday, God willing.
With
Yes.
more exciting stuff.
Mm-hmm. So be well and have a good holiday. Take care, everybody.
Bye, folks.